Amendment Bill Number 5, Bill 2017 be read second time in accordance with the rules of procedure. The debate is adjourned and the bill is referred to the House Committee.
Before the adjournment of the meeting of the 12th of July 2017, this Council passed the motion for the second reading of the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2017. This Council now proceeds to the committee stage to consider the bill. Secretary for Transport and Housing. Thank you, Chairman. In accordance with Rules of Procedure Rule 40(4), I move that the committee be adjourned. As the Secretary for Transport and Housing has moved a motion to adjourn the bill, we will first deal with this motion. The Secretary for Transport and Housing, you may now speak on the motion. Thank you. In accordance with Rule 40(4) of the Rules of Procedure, I move that the motion be adjourned and the bill be considered later on the 13th of July. That is the last day of the Council meeting in the last session. This Council passed the second reading of the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2017. The Council is supposed to resume the consideration of the bill today. Now, I must stress that the government has no intention to lessen the demand-side management measures. We believe it is necessary that we maintain the series of demand-side management measures, including the implementation of the new stamp duty measures. This is to ensure the stable development of the housing market. In the past few months, on tax refund for people changing properties, we've been listening to views. Under the current measure, the period is 6 months and is proposed to be extended to 9 months, so people have more time to change properties. That's acceptable. In the past, the government was most concerned that with this measure, it might lead to speculation again in the market, that this is a sign for government to lessen its cooling measures, and it might then cause the market to heat up again. But we've been listening to the response of the market and various parties on this suggestion. We consider that by extending the period for people to switch properties, it will help them. And also, we have sent out strong message that we have no plan to lessen the cooling measures. So we believe this arrangement will not have much impact on the market. Now, we would like to complete this scrutiny of the bill as soon as possible so that we could implement a new stamp duty for the residential properties. But for the co-location arrangement, it's important that we have the early support of this Council so we could proceed with the other stages of the task when we believe that is even more urgent. That's why we decide to hold the scrutiny of the stamp duty bill so we could first deal with the co-location arrangement proposal. On the 25th of July 2017, the government announced the proposal on the immigration, customs, and quarantine clearance procedures for the Express Rail Link or the Hong Kong section. We proposed the co-location arrangement. Since the proposal was announced in the past few months, there's been extensive debate in the community on the proposal. Different political parties, trade associations, chambers of commerce, and local organizations have conducted opinion polls on the co-location proposal. In the majority of the opinion polls, there are more people in the supporting the co-location arrangement at the West Kowloon terminus. And during the summer break of the Legislative Council, 2 meetings were called to consider the co-location proposal. The Secretary for Justice, the Secretary for Security, and myself attended the relevant meetings to answer members' questions. For the works of the Express Hong Kong Shenzhen section of the Express Rail Link. The works have been progressing well. 95% of the works have been completed. The aim is to commission the line in the third quarter of 2018. We are now actually proceeding with the testing of the train services. We're also making necessary arrangement for the operation of the rail service. As we are edging close to the commissioning of the Express Rail Link, the government needs to decide on the relevant clearance procedures. We would like this council to debate the co-location proposal at the first opportunity upon its resumption, so we could then proceed with the three-step process and take forward the other tasks in relation to the clearance procedures. This will then ensure we could implement co-location arrangement at the West Kowloon Terminus in the third quarter of 2018 when the line is commissioned. That's why we gave notice on the 3rd of October to the Council that at the Council meeting on the 25th of October, we are going to propose a motion on the co-location proposal at the West Kowloon Terminus. This is to allow members a chance to debate the motion. The members' speeches and views would be important reference for us. We want to make sure that members will have ample time for the debate at the council meeting on the 25th of October. We also want to make sure that we could keep in line with our timetable for the clearance for the relevant tasks in relation to the co-location arrangement. That's why I propose to adjourn the consideration of the stamp duty bill at this point. After the council has dealt with the motion on the co-location arrangement, the administration will immediately give notice to the Secretary of the Legislative Council again to continue the consideration of the bill. We hope the Council will pass the bill at an early date. So I speak, Mr. Chairman, I ask members to support the motion to adjourn the bill. Thank you. If member wish to speak, please press the request to speak button. Yes, Mr. James Toh? There's not a quorum.
現在嘅待議議題係
The question I put to you is that the committee be adjourned. Mr. James Toll. Chairman, all of a sudden, the administration proposes to postpone the scrutiny of the stamp duty. According to the administration, the reason for the postponement is to accommodate the debate on the 25th of October on collocation, because they would like it to be endorsed as soon as possible. Now, let me look at the chronology. It is very sudden. Yesterday, when a reporter asked me about this, I was really surprised. The resumption of, well, that is, the resumption of committee stage of the stamp duty bill, but that was something that was already known since July.
And the motion on collocation, as I understand it, was the subject of a notice to this council some time ago, so that the motion can be discussed and endorsed on the 25th of October. If they want to have this motion carried, why is it not scheduled for the 18th instead of 25th of October? When Mrs. Lam, the CE, said that the time allowed for tax rebate will be increased from 6 to 9 months. She didn't say that the bill would be postponed. So that this week, according to the thinking at the time, that we'll be discussing, we'll be scrutinizing the stamp duty bill today, and then on the 25th we'll discuss the collocation motion. And then suddenly, before the EXCO meeting started yesterday, she said that the stamp duty bill would have to be postponed. If we compare this bill with the motion on collocation, which is more important? Which one should be dealt with first? I've been a member for quite a long time. I know the government is the executive branch. They have people to decide the order of items for this council and which one should be tabled. And the president usually would respect the decision of the government. But the government must not look down upon this council and change the order as it wishes. Remember, members have to make preparation for debates, and you may have to decide your schedules around the agenda items. Some members would be responsible for specific items. You cannot just say that I just invoked Rule 40(4) and I ask for change. And if the pro-establishment members support me, I can do what I would like to have done. And you can revert back to the old order tomorrow if you so wishes. And now the bill is already in the committee stage. So it's a very rare move to see changes at this stage. And the postponement will carry other implications. You cannot say that yesterday morning I told the public or this council that I'm going to do this the following day. I'm going to ask a postponement the following day. What did the government take this council for? Maybe the establishment member knew this in advance. In effect, you are giving us 1 day's notice. Especially this is the case of pro-democracy camp. Maybe the government that did give you more notice. So we are given a notice of just 1 day. If on the 3rd of October you proposed to move a motion on collocation on the 25th, so at that time it must be okay to you in terms of time arrangement. Otherwise, you should have asked for the motion to be discussed on the 18th, or you should mention the necessity to postpone the stamp duty bill. If you are so concerned, if you attach so much importance to that motion, you can change the date for that motion to the 18th. So on the 3rd of October, the government, including the CE, was of the view that this stamp duty bill or the resumption of the scrutiny of the stamp duty bill should, as a matter of principle, be done before the motion on collocation. That's a reasonable deduction. So that's why they did not ask for the motion on collocation be tabled on the 18th, or to ask for the postponement of the stamp duty at that time, stamp duty bill at that time. It was a situation until a few days ago, and it was not related to EXCO because the CE said asked for this. The CE asked for this before the EXCO meeting. So what does the government take this council for? It wants to change anything that it like. Well, because a change like this would entail other things, not just the government side, but also on the part of members, people who are observing these meetings, who are concerned about the business that we are attending to. There are people who may like to hand in petitions, for example. So this shows a total disrespect for this council. President, the motion on collocation has no legal effect. The stamp duty bill does have legal effect. According to our order paper, business with a legislative effect will be handled first. You can say this is in line with our tradition or in line with just logic. Now you want to change the order. You want to give a motion without legislative effect priority, and as a result you want to postpone a bill with legislative effect. What's the logic? You cannot say that you can do it. You have the power to ask for this. You have to explain yourself. According to pro-establishment members, the collocation arrangement involves 3 steps, and this motion is not one of the 3 steps. This morning I was interviewed by a radio program. Mr. Wong Kok-kin phoned in. He said that this is not a necessary step. It's done out of goodwill. It's just a move to seek the consent and agreement of this council out of goodwill. Let's not just talk about the substance of collocation arrangements or the pros and cons and the arguments. If you say this is not a necessity, so it's done out of a goodwill. Let's presume that this is done out of goodwill. So you want to move a motion out of goodwill. Why do you want to rush a motion through? Because you want to show goodwill. Some members may hold the view that the stamp duty bill will affect people's livelihood, and it's no longer a controversial point in relation to the lengthening of the time allowed for changing properties. In the past few years, we have a number of bills on different types of additional stamp duties. It was said that every time we had to spend many hours, scores of hours, on each bill, because every time when we discovered loopholes, we wanted to plug those loopholes. The government would deny that there were loopholes, and now they want to plug the loopholes just as we suggested in the past. And the pro-establishment members have no choice but to oppose to my views. So I will advance my arguments to justify that there are loopholes, and they would say no. They would object to my amendment. My amendment would mean that the time allowed would be extended from 6 to 9 months. And Mr. Houghton Chow also moved an amendment to a similar effect. And now the government agrees that it should be lengthened. So there is no more any controversy, and it will be passed without any problem. And then for people, property buyers who may want to have a rebate, will be given more time to dispose of their original properties. Many people are in the process of so-called trading up or swapping. Of course, they would have no idea whether the time of of that is 9 months would be passed, because the stamp duty would be 15%. And of course, if they don't have any time left, they would cut the price by 5%, and then they will at least get back 10%, if not 15%. Now they would be with an amendment. Without the amendment, they would have to sell the property at a discount, say 5%. In the past, even expensive properties would incur a stamp duty of just a few percentage. And now it's already tough enough to buy a new property, and you want them to suffer by not allowing a rebate. Every time the government would ask for things to be expedited when they want to pass some bill. And now the bill has passed the second reading stage, which already took some time. And now we're now in the committee stage. There aren't many CSAs, because you have already agreed to the point about one lease covering a number of properties. And now even the extension of time limit from 6 to 9 months is no longer controversial. So you should get it passed as soon as practicable. I don't accuse me of harboring some conspiracy theory. Why did Mrs. Carrie Lam make a big change in the past few days? I think it had to do with the pro-establishment camp's attempt to amend the rules of procedure, because according to what they told the media, from now till the 11th of March, there will only be just a few council meetings in which they would have a majority in the GC's, and therefore they would like to have as few items in the agenda as possible, and therefore the CE just want to tie in by the postponing dispute.
Mr. Wong Ting-kwong. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the chairman of the Bills Committee on the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2017, I'd like to say this. The Secretary for Transport and Housing has moved a motion to adjourn the bill today. I and members of the DAB all support that move. Now we have completed the scrutiny of the bill, and we've also completed the second reading of the bill. We're now in the committee stage. So we are towards the end of voting on the bill. Now, for various reasons, the SL government proposes to adjourn the bill, but actually it won't affect anything because the measures have been in place. And also, some time ago, the Chief Executive, Mrs. Carrie Lam, promised to extend the period for trading homes from 6 months to 9 months for eligibility of tax rebate. So we commend him for listening to the views of the community. Mr. James Toh mentioned that this bill is only in committee stage now this session. It's because in the last session, some members were engaged in a non-cooperation movement, and there was filibustering, and that's why many bills could not be passed as scheduled, and things have dragged on till now. On shuffling the order of council business, Mr. James will refer to broad principles. Well, when they want something to be to have their orders shuffled, they will support it. But when they don't like some business items to have a different order, then they say they don't want to talk about principles. Well, I hope the public could see clearly the tricks of their camp. I won't say more. Thank you. Mr. Ray Chan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I must state that I support the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2017. I hope that it will be passed as soon as possible. I also support the amendments to be proposed by members today, and I want these amendments to be passed as soon as possible too. Last year, the government said the same thing that Mr. Frank Chan said. That is, the government has no intention to relax the cooling measures, and the government wanted the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill to be passed as soon as possible. That's what they said last time. Now, of course, for this bill, the measures already taken effect. So it's a bill in a way that's negative vetting. And so the measures already in place. So on the surface of it, it seems that on the face of it, it seems that it won't make a difference. But as the government kept saying, if we drag on the passage of the bill, it will send out unclear signals. And that's why Mr. Frank Chan had said just now at the beginning that the government has no intention to relax the cooling measures. Otherwise, it will send out unclear signals to the market. That's what the government told us before. But now you are also proposing to adjourn the committee stage and the third reading of the bill. So it's up to you to say whatever you want. Now, the government is invoking Rule 40(4), which covers the motion to adjourn further proceedings of the committee stage. when Carol Lam came out to mention that yesterday, she got things all confused, so people are confused. Now, we are in the committee stage. So this is a debate on the motion to adjourn. Yesterday, when Carol Lam spoke, she said the Secretary for Transport and Housing would move a motion to adjourn the committee stage of the to adjourn the study stamp duty amendment bill 2017 that's already been moved into the committee stage, but that's not correct. Rather, today this debate is on a motion to adjourn the council. Now, it's rare to have a motion to adjourn during the committee stage. Well, even though if it's rare, it doesn't mean that there is not this rule. The rule is here. I've used it before successfully on the copyright amendment bill. I had wanted Greg So, the secretary, to invoke this rule because it would be simple majority and the pro-establishment camp wouldn't vote against it. But because I invoked the rule, the pro-establishment camp said that you mustn't call for a division, otherwise we would just walk out, because the pro-establishment camp would not support a motion moved by the opposition to adjourn the debate. But of course, at the end, no one claimed a division, and that motion to adjourn was passed. So what I'm trying to tell the public is that it's not for the government or the pro-establishment camp to say whenever you do that, this is filibustering. It's about stalling things, about wasting time and money, public money. Now today, you're going to support this motion moved by Mr. Frank Chen. And that's exactly under Rule 40, Bracket 4. I used that before. James Toh complained why Carol Lam never said so earlier. Even on Monday at lunch, she mentioned nothing. Yesterday, Carol Lam said, because she's so smart, for this motion, there's no need to give advance notice, but I am telling the public today ahead of the motion. Wow, as if it's such a big favor to the public. Yes, Frank Chan could just stand up any time to move the motion in accordance with rules of procedure. If you want to have advance notice, you can amend the rules of procedure, because the rules of procedure says that when the council is in committee, a member may move without notice that further proceedings of the committee be now adjourned. So you could move with motion without notice, and so the government's actually given 1 day notice, and that's being very generous. Now, the government is using all the powers at its disposal, but we kept saying that it shouldn't do so. And this time round, you are showing exactly you are the government. You can overpower us. You can use all your powers. And of course, you could say, of course, yeah, you're not going against the rules of procedure. Otherwise, the president wouldn't allow it. But this move shows disrespect to the Legislative Council. It also denies members an opportunity to move amendments to the bill. It's a waste of time too, because the pro-establishment camp has said that we should be efficient in scrutinizing bill, and so it goes against this principle. And there are members in the public who may be affected for the 6 months resale period. It cannot be extended to 9 months, and some property owners will suffer as a result. It doesn't help their plight. Yesterday, when Carol Lam mentioned that the stamp duty bill will be adjourned, the reason is not because the government wants to improve upon the bill. Now, I have done a lot of homework. I've gone back on past records. Has the government ever invoked Rule 40, Bracket 4 to adjourn any bill is moved? It happened, yes, 17 years ago. In June 2002, when we considered the Buildings Amendment Bill, at that time the Secretary moved a motion to adjourn under Rule 40, Bracket 4. Now, why am I saying that? I don't want to go visit history with you, but rather I'm saying when the government moves a motion to adjourn, a bill is moved, it's a rare move. 17 years ago it did so. I can understand why. Now, after 17 years, I can accept what the government is doing. Why did the government do that 17 years ago? I wasn't there, of course. I was just going through records. At that time, at the committee stage, there was an unexpected incident. Mr. Lee Wing-tat moved an amendment on the lower threshold for the number of for the size of the owners committees. The government also moved an amendment, but this amendment was voted down. Lee Wing-tat's amendment was also voted down. Now that's the problem, because the government didn't expect its amendment to be voted down, and then for the original bill there were some technical issues as a result. And at the time, the chairman of the committee used his power to adjourn the meeting so the government could come back the following day. And now on the following day, the government moved a motion to adjourn under Rule 40, Bracket 4, so it will be allowed more time to review the bill. And then at the next council meeting on the 27th of June, the bill was considered again. So this time around, the circumstances are very different. Last time, there was a technical problem with the bill. It could not be foreseen because the government's amendment was voted down. So the government needed to buy time to fix that. But this time around, what is the first reason for adjourning this bill? It has nothing to do with this bill at all. The reason the government's doing it is, as Carrie Lam said, is because on the 25th of October, the government wants to move a motion on the co-location arrangement. The government is concerned that this stamp duty bill may take too long. The government suggested it may take 19 to 26 hours to consider this bill, but as James Toh said, it's just an estimate. Now, in previous amendment bills, members moved many amendments. They were very controversial, but this time around, they're just two amendments. We've all expressed support for the amendments. At the time, these amendments were controversial because the government wouldn't do it. But now, of course, the government has not stated clearly that it would allow it, although there are news circulating that the government would accept 9 months, but the government hasn't confirmed it. Now, can I ask you, Mr. Frank Chang, at the start of your speech, what you said is a bit different than what Carrie Lam said yesterday. So when you speak again, please clarify that point. Carrie Lam said, after the conclusion of the motion on co-location and after the conclusion of the policy address debate, then this bill will be submitted to LegCo again as soon as possible. But then the secretary said at the beginning of his speech that the bill will be put back on the agenda after the motion on co-location. So are you going to take out the policy address debate? Now, and then Carrie Lam never said that the government would take on board members' amendments, but rather the government will review it and consider whether members' amendments could be accepted, which is about the period. That is, after owner bought a new property, he paid stamp duty. Within 6 months, he must sell his old property. So for people who couldn't sell their old property within 6 months, instead they will be given 9 months or even 12 months, as some have suggested. So Carrie Lam said she would ask the Secretary for Transport and Housing to review this arrangement. So can you be more specific today? Consideration bills is almost the most important task of this council when compared to our other tasks. Now, when we filibuster on bills, you say we can dispense with other items like in motions without legal effect. It's just talk shop. So it's just for members to tell each other things because the government won't listen to us. So there's not even a debate or it's just a speech-giving session. That's all. So for motions without legal legislative effect, you say they mean nothing. But compared to items with legislative effect, like this stamp duty amendment bill with far-reaching implications. So, of course, we must first complete the work on the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill. So I'm now trying to convince the Secretary to take back his words, but of course it's not up to him. Carrie Lam has already said what the government wants to do, and Matthew Cheung won't even see us. So the Chief Executive has stated what she wants to be done. Now, this is a bad precedent. Once it's said, that means in future this council may be asked to pass motions that are politically oriented but with no legislative effect. And then the government could put a stop to any other items of legislative effect. Maybe the government would say, let's have motion without legislative effect on the national anthem legislation or whatever, or the national flag legislation. So does it mean then we can set aside other bills of great concern to others? The government is moving this motion to adjourn the bill. I think it's a waste of time, which is against the principle of the pro-establishment camp that we should be efficient in dealing with bills. Now, the Bills Committee had 9 meetings on this bill. We spent over hours to deal with the bill. The Secretariat has also spent a lot of time giving support to the Bills Committee. So a lot of public money has been spent on it, and it's now time for us to conclude this item. But I'm worried. Of course, we want this bill to be passed as soon as possible. Maybe some want to stall the one co-location. How far can we go? The president has so much powers. If it's just you just need to speak 2 or 3 times, and the president will stop you. I told the reporters that Carrie Lam wants to be 100% sure. It's the same with screening of chief executive candidates, because they want to be sure of the results before the election even takes place. So Carrie Lam wants to be 100% sure that on the 25th of October, or in that week, the motion without legislative effect will be passed. But is there any urgency with that? There's no evidence given. Carrie Lam just said, if we don't do it on the 25th of October, it will be very late. It's really urgent, so we have to do it. So that's all you said. But we've been pursuing you for 7 years about co-location. When we opposed the funding for the XRL, we've been pursuing you. It's only in July this year you put forward a proposal. You just gave us 3 months. There's no public consultation, and then you say you have to rush. And you want us to pass the motion on the 25th of October. So it's up to you. When you say it's urgent, it's urgent. When we try to pursue, you don't care. And now you have set a deadline in your mind, so you won't even allow any delays. So I would appeal to pro-establishment camp, don't just follow the orders of Carrie Lam. Carrie Lam sees this as a political mission. She wants to make sure that the motion on co-location arrangement should be passed in the October 25th week. That's she wants our mandate. That's why she wants to sacrifice this bill.
The government announced that it would introduce this non-binding co-location motion on the 25th. And out of the blue, again, to be more precise, yesterday, by Carrie Lam, on behalf of the government, announced that it's going to withdraw this stamp duty legislation today. You could call this exactly a one-day notice to adjourn, it says, right? Further proceedings of the committee of the whole council be now adjourned. So this is sort of an adjournment debate. I saw somebody yawning just now, or complaining, I heard, and I actually could see somebody napping there. This whole debate is unnecessary to start with, but it's initiated by the government. It's so rare. Incredibly rare. 17 years ago, exactly, it was done once, and once only, and under fairly reasonable circumstances. So what's Carrie Lam trying to do? The minister in charge babbled on quite a bit just now. But he failed to explain why this legislation on stamp duty is binding. It's a piece of legislation. Of course it's binding, right? And the government motion on co-location, it's non-binding. It's just a political PR exercise. It's obvious to everyone. Anyone with the right mind can see through this government tactic. So why something that concerns livelihood, about home buying, about the housing market, should wait for something that's purely political, that particular co-location public relations step is completely unnecessary. But according to the government, it's more urgent than this stamp duty thing right in front of us. I hope he would really explain to the Hong Kong public what exactly this administration is trying to do. And another thing that's not just baffling, but abominable, is that Carrie Lam said herself, I'm very keen about having this home buying issue as my as the key thing in my governance. Home buying. Well, stamp duty is about home buying too. Why the about face? Why the double talk? Or somebody actually said to me last night there could be some scare tactic on the part of the government. Let them sweat. But who's them? Scaring who? With what? Now this legislation, this stamp duty, to be doubled to 15%, I'm sure one idea behind is to try to, pour cold water, we would say, dampen wishes on speculation in the market. You pay double if you buy for speculative purposes. But what about home buyers? Oh, we have exemptions. Yes, quite a few have mentioned that already. You have this 6-month break or grace period or exemption period. You go and buy a new flat and you have to sell your old flat within 6 months. But 6 months, it's a very tight time constraint. We all knew that, especially if you are living in some old tenement buildings. Those 5- to 6-story walk-ups. Walk-up, meaning there's no lifts, right? They're not particularly popular anymore in the market. God knows, it's not even, of course it's not second-hand, unlikely. 3rd, 4th, 5th hand. What if you can't sell it within the time limit? So, thank God there were amendments. I'm actually more agreeable with the amendment that should be extended to 12 months, double the time. If you're doubling the stamp duty, you might as well double the exemption time. And this is a good thing for the market too, for home buyers, the group of people, the potential, the aspiring home buyers in Hong Kong. I want to own my own home. That's what Carrie Lam kind of promised to Hong Kong people. And this is very important, the stamp duty business, because the difference it would make with or without the exemption, whether or not you enjoy the exemption, the payment exemption, is huge. It could be up to $1 million plus. Talking about a regular, say, 700 square foot flat. And no, And this housing, transport, and whatnot minister would be perfectly agreeable with what the government has to say on this political front, and that is never mind stamp duty, because it's going to take time, right? Just in case we can't go ahead with our co-location political mission next Wednesday, then there wouldn't be any good. So I think Hong Kongers should really see through this government, this administration. It's becoming so transparent. They couldn't care less anymore. They would just do what they want. The administration, Carrie Lam and her royal court, together they serve themselves. Maybe no, together they serve Beijing first and then themselves. Now listen, if I live in some old building and I'm fed up with the condition of my old flat, the ceilings falling down, everything's falling apart, the plumbing doesn't work, and electricity comes on and off because there are too many subdivided or butchered flats around. So I would go and buy a new flat. And if the time constraint is that little, you are forcing me to buy a flat that's still to be finished. What we call 老花 in Chinese, right? It's yet to be designed even, probably, to be built. So that I would give myself, to buy that flat, I'm buying myself more time too, to sell my old flat. That sort of things. And that's to whose benefit? The developers. Even before the construction site has started work, they could have sold their little apartments like hotcakes already. So you're just carrying on with this very twisted market in Hong Kong. Can I have the quorum, please?
點算法定人數？
毛孟靜議員。
Many people have called
Ms. Claudia Mo.
government, specifically Mrs. Lam, a smiling tiger, that it will eat you up, gobble you up while smiling still. And many people, myself included as well, have equated this co-location arrangement as sold by the government. Self-castration. It sounds very painful, but it is self-castration. It amounts to that sort of self-destruction. Because Hong Kong government will actually twist the basic law to the point that we would be asking Beijing to give us the authority to say that this particular area is not Hong Kong. It doesn't belong to Hong Kong. You guys, all the officials from mainland China can just come in and implement mainland law. This is very curious. And they keep saying that, oh, well, there are plenty of overseas examples. Now, don't you keep lying like that. It's not the same. You knew, I knew, you knew, right? It's all about what they call quarantine, customs, and immigration. Only. No criminal laws. Thank you very much.
毛孟靜議員，我想睇
Ms. Claudia Mo, may I remind you, this is a debate on the motion to adjourn. Please do not discuss in detail the motion for next week, because this is not in line with the rules of procedure. Ms. Claudia Mo, please let me finish before you speak, okay? I'm just reminding you, Ms. Claudia Mo.
Thanks to cable TV, hats off to cable TV. They've got this very thorough news feature on Futian Station along the XRL in China, Futian, right? That station has actually set aside, earmarked quite a huge bit of area for co-location. Why is it now forced on Hong Kong, I wonder? The government has never replied to that it was planned to be done in Futian, not Hong Kong. Why the change of heart? Why the U-turn? Now, why the urgency that we must discuss this next Wednesday and no later? Would that have anything to do with all the grand ceremony in Beijing? Well, that's taking place in Beijing at the moment. Another thing, people have been talking about the new Carrie Lam government as some authoritarian regime. And now, sorry, this is an adjournment debate. Because they initiated this adjournment, I have to say that again, once again, they're reflecting, probably subconsciously, their subconscious authoritarian inclination, if not actual approach. They do what they want. They want co-location to be discussed. They go ahead. They don't want this stamp duty thing still on the table. They don't want it. But how could they play a legislature like this? This is just not right. And I hope you as president would give them some peace of mind. Tell them we need checks and balances in this city, albeit a rather tiny city. Hong Kong does stand out. We are unique. Remember social contract. There's a contract between the government, and the people, the ruling and those being ruled. Ultimately, it's one word: trust. I urge this government, please don't lose any trust, or any trust that's left behind, if there's anything still there. There's a minimal amount of trust left. But you're terrified. It's so obvious. You're terrified of public opinion, of popular opinion. You want to use that motion of yours next week to give the wrong impression that, oh, the local legislature has endorsed. Of course you get the endorsement from all those shoe shiners over there. So the local legislature has endorsed Dear Master in Beijing, and here we are. We're doing a very good job in Hong Kong. Forget it. Thank you.
梁耀忠議員。
Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. It goes without saying that yesterday the chief executive said very clearly that today the secretary would move the motion to adjourn the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2017 for one purpose only, which is to accommodate the debate on collocation next week. That motion is non-binding. So when it comes to the administration's motive and result, I strongly oppose to them. All of a sudden, the administration moves this motion to adjourn to move goalpost, to take the pan-democrats by surprise. This is unreasonable and shameful. I can't find another more suitable word to describe this. In order to implement an illegal collocation proposal, they would resort to any means available. Motions to adjourn, which is not binding, to be moved by the administration is rare, and it doesn't stop at that. In order to make it out as if it was a consultation, they juggle and play with legislative procedure. The Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2017 is endorsed with consensus. However, the administration wants to adjourn this to give way to a controversial topic, collocation. This is utter disrespect of Hong Kong people. This is disrespectful to the legislature, and they treat legislative procedures as pawns that they can use anytime they want. This is outrageous. Some loyalists twisted the facts to defend the administration, to speak for them without good reason. And they did not even defend this legislature. And I find that extremely disappointing. The Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2017 was already delayed from C.Y. Leung's government to Carrie Lam's government from the last legislative year to this year. They were new cooling measures, but now they are old cooling measures. However, the administration said that because they want to adjourn this topic, we don't get to discuss this anymore. And it was said that without a debate, the property market will not be affected anyway. But that is not the case, because there are proposals saying that the period should be relaxed from 6 to 9 months to allow buyers to sell their old flat. And there are also legal liabilities of real estate agents so that they will not be done stamp duty by the Inland Revenue Department. Has the government and the loyalists think about had thought about this. I remember last year, the administration said that starting from April 2016, there was a marked surge in property prices for domestic properties. If we didn't do anything, prices would continue to rise, and there would be risks, and it would be a hefty price to pay. Government officials and a number of loyalists said in the debate that the bill should be endorsed as soon as possible to cool the residential property market down. The officials said that since the new measures, and there was a large amount of stamp duty kept by law firms for quite a long time, so this bill should be endorsed as soon as possible so that the government can collect it. It's been a year. We see that there is still a very tight housing supply. Bank interest rate is ultra low. Risks are still very high. The administration would like to make more time for collocation or to allow loyalists to amend the rules of procedure. I think it's just that they have reneged on what they have said. They have completely disregarded the plight faced by Hong Kong people because of high property prices and no chance of buying your own flat. Carrie Lam, our chief executive, said that the stamp duty bill will be introduced to the LegCo as soon as possible, and in the meantime, she would ask the Secretary for Transport and Housing to introduce amendments in relation to the period to increase it from 6 to 9 or even 12 months. Sounds good, sounds grand. But if there is any ounce of sincerity on the part of the government, there needs not for them to do anything in the first place. Just allow members to introduce the amendments. You don't have to go the long way to get the government to make the amendment. Is it the case that only I can propose amendments, not members? This is ridiculous. And these are cooling measures announced by the CY Leung government. Since this announcement, it's been a year. What we have seen so far is that they are of limited effect when it comes to cooling property prices down. For small and medium-sized residential flats, prices continue to surge far beyond the affordability of a lot of people. A lot more people waiting for PRH units. They have to live in the private sector, paying high prices. In a recent 2017 report, it says that Hong Kong has taken over Shanghai's place to become the most expensive place to live in Asia. Per square foot in Hong Kong is 2.69 times more expensive than other Asian places. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, there is not enough quorum. Mr. Kwok Wai-keung, your prop is oversized. Please take it down. Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. Just now I was saying that per square foot price in Hong Kong, it's 2.69 times higher than the average in Asia. That is quite shocking. So we should not get bogged down in this stamp duty bill debate. I do expect that with the new government, there will be more progressive new cooling measures. Or at least, after the endorsement of the stamp duty bill, there should be an immediate review instead of getting stuck with proposed amendments made by the last government. Well, I do think that we do need to endorse this bill so that we can have a review of its effectiveness. And I can tell you that the administration's intention is perfectly clear. What they would like to do is to start discussion of the co-location arrangements. Why? Because all along the administration just pretend to be open-minded. They said they would open their ears because they want to create the impression that they listen to different political parties. But you know that with the majority of members being loyalists, and they have disqualified 6 directly elected members. Even when Pan-Democrats opposed to it, with the loyalists voting for them, the co-location motion will be endorsed. And in the future, when someone casts doubt that this the arrangements didn't go through consultation, the administration would say it's been debated in LegCo and supported by majority of members, so it should not challenge it anymore. So the administration will have a perfect reason, but that is only an illusion. The administration is actually very afraid of one thing. If they don't have an early discussion on co-location arrangements, there might be a chance that the public sentiment may change. The latest poll show that there are more and more objections. Over 70% of the respondents indicated that the co-location arrangement has contravened the basic law. Less than 40% of the people said that it is not in compliance, and 43% of respondents said that there should be co-location in Futian Station. Only 40% of respondents said that they don't want the co-location in Futian. And it's obvious that the administration has used large-scale publicity, but the effect starts to wane. There are a lot of problems with co-location. It will create great damage to one country, two system. And the effectiveness they have boasted about the XRL is a complete deviation from reality. That's why they would like to have a discussion here as soon as possible. They would like to finish today's agenda so that they can vacate time for discussion next week.
But
the government should know this. People know what the government is after. You cannot cheat our people. If this bill is not passed today and we wait for it to be reintroduced later, the government can take it slowly. There's no need to stop the process in the tracks. The government is imposing this on us. The government does not respect public opinion. Moments ago, some members said that although in the latest surveys, more people objected to the co-location plan, but the difference is not big. If we disregard statistical margin of error, it's just a stalemate. But I would say that shows that is the controversy is there. And neither side can prevail over the other. So there should be wide public consultation, and we should allow the public to have discussions so that we know clearly what the co-location plan may be implemented, what the co-location plan may benefit Hong Kong. But the government is adopting a strong-arm tactic. And this is really revolting to us. The government is afraid of facing public opinion, and it's just being evasive. The CE has been talking about mending the fence and reducing the rift of our people, but it's all talk. It's just like the sophistry of the last CE, CY Leung, and now it's even worse because public opinion is just ignored, and this is what the CE has been doing to promote harmony. Well, this is really an eye-opener because she thinks this can bring about harmony. Members here are responsible for monitoring the government. We should not accept the government's attempt to circumvent the rules or to take advantage of our rules. So I absolutely oppose to this adjournment motion. The government should think twice. Think about what should be done, what should not be done. The government should uphold justice. They should uphold and promote our well-being. Mr. Alvin Young, my colleague, has prepared a long speech for me on the stamp duty bill, and I would like to exchange views with members on that bill. Unfortunately, we now faced with a big challenge in that the government would like to change the order of things to make way for the non-binding motion on co-location. So I have to talk about something else now. It's good that we have so many loyalists sitting here to listen to our speeches. So I would work harder on expounding certain views. Chairman, as the saying goes, where water flows, fish follow. I want to give this to the full team of loyalists here, and also to the secretary, Mr. Chan. I want to give him this. This sort of playing around with the rules of procedure of the council is really remarkable. Where does the water come from? From the from the Carrie Lam government. And the loyalists are just like fish. No problem if you want to change the order of business. Because as a fish, I follow where the water flows, they would say. It's about to enter the final stage, the third reading. And now you want to withdraw it. Why? Have we aborted all the previous efforts on the bill? And when it comes to changing orders on the agenda before the summer recess in June, the Democratic Party colleagues would like to suspend or shelve the stamp duty bill so that we can deal with the more urgent water works and treatment plant ordinance. And the government said that if this bill were to be withdrawn, the market would be given a wrong message. So it would be a wrong message if the bill was withdrawn in June, but not in October, or even if there's a wrong message, it doesn't matter. Maybe that's their logic, but they have two different types of logic. One, the government logic, the other, logic as recognized by the public. The Democratic Party would like to shelve the discussion on the stamp duty bill. Ms. Starley of DAB said that the proposal to withdraw it would be an abuse of our rules. And I don't know whether Ms. Starley is still very angry about the withdrawal of this bill, and would she be ready to say that the government is abusing our rules? Of course she wouldn't, because they are all like the fish in the Western proverb, and they would just follow the water. I don't know how reluctant or how willing or unwilling the government is in moving this motion, or is the time so urgent? We're talking about non-abiding, a motion without legislative effect. So we want to shelve abiding the bill to give way to a non-binding motion. What do you mean by non-binding? It has no legislative effect. The government used to say that this stamp duty bill was very important. And now we want this bill to give way. As I said, in this universe, we have two types of logic. One, normal logic. The second, logic as expounded by the Secretary under Carrie Lam's government. So many people have worked so hard on this bill, and now we want to ask it to be shelved. Well, this is all for some political objectives. Chairman, let's look at the property market of Hong Kong. Why do we want to have these cooling measures? There's the BSD, DSD, and SSD. Because of the tight supply and the low interest, the government introduced in the past few years these measures to dampen the market, to stabilize the market. Although they may not all be very effective or achieve the intended results. Since April 2016, we have seen a big rebound, especially for small and medium-sized flats. In the third quarter last year, the exuberance was so high that the imbalance became more acute. It was what the government said for the introduction of more cooling off measures. According to the government, if no measures like these were taken, we are going to see a risk of spiral increase in property prices, and that would result in a very damaging collection later, damaging the stability of our monetary and financial sector. The SAR government, we're talking about the same SAR government, was of the view that there's a need to introduce a new round of cooling measures to cool down the market. That's correct. That's the right move. I think most members here would agree to that. But now the government is saying that these measures are really not that important. It's been a year since we introduced the cooling measures. It seems that the exuberance in the market for small and medium-sized flats has not gone down. And that is for the flats under 40 square meters. The index has raised from 338.4 to 374.5, an increase of 11%. For flats with a size between 40 to 59.9 square meters, is gone up. The index has gone up from 293.8 to 320.3, an increase of almost 10%. The selling price index reflects that in the private property market, the prices are escalating upwards. So that anti-speculation measures, the cooling measures have not been effective. But if those measures were not introduced, things could have been much worse. According to the R&V department, in August this year, for Hong Kong Island, the average price is 16,200, 13,000 for Kowloon, NT 12,000 for small and medium-sized flats, showing that it's really not affordable by most people. I think the pro-establishment members here are also concerned about the general public and also about people holding professional jobs. Why are you deserting them now? Why are you ignoring them? Why do you want to ignore their plight in this very heated property market? According to a Swiss bank on wealth, saying that Hong Kong has overtaken Shanghai as the most expensive city because of the increasing property prices. Our ranking has gone up. The average price is US dollars $51,000 per square feet. It's 2.69 times as expensive as the general average for other cities. So our business environment is being damaged. The members representing the business community cannot turn a blind eye to this. You are here to defend the interests of the business environment at the business sector. So how can you be accountable to your constituents if you just sit there? You are the cream of the community. So how can you ignore such an important matter for Hong Kong? Is it that the pro-establishment members have done nothing for the stamp duty bill? No, not exactly. The very clever Mr. Holden Chan proposed a CSA, and he also said that he would support Mr. James To's amendment. So why don't the pro-establishment members support Mr. Holden Chow's amendment just to give him some credit? And now the chance of Mr. Holden Chow of getting some brownie points would be forgone. I feel sorry for him. If we don't have this German motion, your amendment could have been passed. But now it's not possible anymore. Members are really puzzled by all these. We don't understand why. This is the logic and this is the behavior of pro-establishment members. German, the property market is so heated. So what kind of message does the government want to convey to the market? How should ordinary people understand the strategy of the government if all of a sudden you withdraw something which is controversial, which may affect the property market, which will affect people's ability to buy homes? And remember that this is something specially mentioned in the policy address, in that she would like to help people to buy their homes. So what is more important than this? What can be more important than this? And don't forget that the government said that this bill should be passed urgently. It was considered important because we will be talking about billions of dollars kept by solicitors' firms. What about the very bright lawyers from the pro-establishment camp? Why do they don't understand this? If this bill is not passed, and in the meantime some solicitors' firm collapses, it would have dire consequences. So how can the government recover the loss? So I don't understand the logic that they would just ignore this. In December, in the Bills Committee, all pro-establishment members and the government officials would like to see the bill passed as soon as possible, and that is to say all except the members representing the real estate center. And now suddenly, the pro-establishment members are colluding with the member representing the property sector. Well, you are supposed to represent all different sectors. So why suddenly you agree to the government's motion to withdraw this? And the government has been denying that there is no government business collusion in respect of the construction and the real estate sector. So why suddenly they want to do this to help the real estate sector? I don't understand. I think many people in the community would not understand. And now, in order to pass a non-binding motion on co-location, they would like to do this. But it's not binding. Before us, there's something that will help your constituents, something that will be binding. But you don't want to help our people. But you're so concerned about something non-binding. I don't understand. But maybe legislators don't have to understand things. All you have to do is to follow instructions. And you will be a very competent LegCo member. So I submit. Dr. Jiang Chung Tai. I think we should be clear about one thing in this motion. We should criticize Mr. Leung, the chairman. The government is trying to undermine its own power. So why do you want to waive the notice required, Chairman? According to Rule 40(4), when the Council is in committee, a member may move without notice that further proceeding of the committee be now adjourned. But whether a waiver or an exemption is granted in respect of notice is decided by the chairman. We may want to consider whether the government may move this motion, but you may argue that there were past precedents. The latest one is the one in 2000, 22nd of June, year 2000. According to the records, the government proposed one. There was a debate, but the debate was not about whether the government was authorized to do this. Although in the British tradition, although the rules talk about a member can move without notice a motion like this, but it's actually a question of whether the chairman or president allows it. So on what basis, what kind of criteria have you based on? Please pause, because you mentioned my ruling under 40(4). It talks about no without notice, and there's no approval. 40(4) talks about a member may move without notice. What about government officials or government? You can ask a pro-establishment member to do it. A member here includes government officials. If you don't understand this, you can go approach our legal advisor. It's here. A member may move without notice, so it can be done without notice. What do you mean by a member? Well, you can interpret the rule like this, but in case of the case of the president in June 2000, Mr. Lee Wing-tat raised a query, and according to the records, the chairman might waive the notice.
So don't say I'm digressing. At the time, the debate was whether the rule also applies to the Secretary for Home Affairs. At the time, the discussion was on the Buildings Amendment Bill, because there wasn't not enough time to deal with relevant business. So the question was asked on what basis the chairman made that ruling. At the time, the chairman or president was Rita Fan. She said it's a new amendment. If it's a new amendment and members do not have enough time to consider it, then she grants the notice. Otherwise, she grants the dispensation of the notice. Otherwise, she won't. So even in 2000, they were trying to push it through without enough reasons. And today, we're not even talking about amendments to the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill. The government is talking about something else in moving this motion to adjourn, so it's totally preposterous. Dr. Jiang Chung-tai, I've already pointed out that officials may move without notice to invoke Rule 40(4). It is not a matter of my ruling. No, I'm not talking about whether government can do it. I'm talking whether you rule. Can you please let me finish? Yes, I'll let you explain that. Rule 40(4). Member there also includes government officials. Now, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about we are going by the rules of procedure. The records are one thing you can say a lot on the records or the Hansard. But as the president, I will go by the rules of procedure. Rule 40(4) is not invoked for the first time. Government officials have invoked it, and you cannot debate the president's ruling. Okay. So you say it's just as for you to dictate the terms, fine. But I'm just saying that we'll ask whoever take the blame for these records then. Okay. You don't think procedurally that's a problem for them to move without notice this motion. But then let's go back to the basic issue. We are now considering the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill, and there's nothing to do with the bill at all. Then all of a sudden, they just wake up and decide there's something important they need to do, so they would just want to withdraw the bill from LegCo. Do we even talk reasons anymore? In terms of the bill or procedure, I don't think I'm not convinced by what you said anyway about the procedures. But even if we just talk about the content of the bill, I call a quorum call, please. There is a quorum here. Please continue. Then I'll continue. You can walk out. And as you walk out, then I will call for quorum again. So we should discuss the content. Clark, is there a quorum now? There is still a quorum. There is not a quorum, right? So call for quorum, Chairman.
鄭松泰議員。
Dr. Chang Chung Tai. Well, I have read very carefully the wordings of the rules of procedure. Of course, Chairman, you said you would think that your ruling is reasonable. But when it comes to the English version, Dr. Chang Chung Tai, my ruling is not to be challenged. My ruling is not to be challenged. Please refer to 40(3) before you continue to speak. All right, then we will use the Westerners version. Now, back to the discussion. The administration would like to take away the Stamp Duty Amendment Bill. This runs counter to the governance philosophy of Carrie Lam. She said not long ago that apart from constitutional reform, the most important issue was housing, and she even proposed to reinstate the property ownership ladder. Then how come at the very beginning of a legislative year she would destroy a core part of her policy address? And previously we were just talking about whether to amend the cooling measures in face of the supply-demand situation, taking into account various housing programs, say, for example, the green form, subsidized housing, and as well as some other programs. And now all of a sudden, she wants to take away this stamp duty bill. It is quite childish. Well, why would I say that? It's because she wants it and she wants it now, and she changed her mind overnight. Well, if members here would accommodate her, what can I say? Then they're all just brats. I don't want to use any words referring to her being a woman. I don't want to be criticized as discriminating her because of her gender. But that is quite bratish. We are very serious here. Under our legal framework, we have a legal basis to discuss this stamp duty, but she wants to take it away so that we can talk about a non-binding motion on collocation. Is it because she woke up and realized she has something to do? Last week she was just talking about property ownership ladder, importance attached to housing, and property ownership is a most important area. This bill, then its amendment would give more leeway for property buyers so that they will have more time to dispose of their first property. However, at this moment, she runs counter to her policy address. To put it mildly, she was a bit, it was a knee-jerk reaction of her, a bit neurotic. Well, last week she had this logic. I don't want to say that, well, women are fickle. Do you realize how ridiculous this is? Because this is the legislature. This is the stamp duty bill. At the start of the last legislative year, there was discussion. It's been a year, and we even, well, you have bought tickets, you have booked hotels for Australia, but you woke up in the morning and realized actually you're going to Macau. Well, if we're not allowed to move the motion and she can, then what? You just spoil the brat. Please pause. Well, please explain if you don't think that you're spoiling the brat. Because you refer to my handling of the matter. 40(4) applies to any member without giving notice and without my consent. And 40(3), as I have made it very clear, if a public officer is in the council, then what they could do under 10(3) was that they could move a motion without giving notice. That was under 10(3). So I have not given any preferential treatment to public officers because they do not require my prior approval, and there is also no need for giving notice. Well, are you criticizing Mrs. Rita Fan? That was the 20th of June 2000. What happened between the discussion between Mr. Tetley and Miss Rita Fan? I would say that you have misbehaved. If you continue, you always say that I misbehave. Well, apart from Carrie Lam, I do think you all know what I'm trying to get at. Well, it's unfortunate that Frank Chan is here because ever since he's taken office, there's not a day when we did not have traffic problems. There are lots of issues to be handled, and yet he thought that collocation debate is very important.
Well, the city bus accident is more important. It should be discussed. And yesterday, they talk about the some bursting seams of the structure at the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge. It's a tunnel. It's a much more serious matter, but they are not as important as a non-binding motion on collocation. We understand that you have received order from the country, and suddenly you want to have this done quickly. I think the Secretary and the CE should reconsider their behavior. They forgot that they had to deal with collocation, and now under much criticism they have realized that they should do this. We had a break of 3 months. You didn't remember this, and you only remember this after the meal with members. She didn't even remember this when she invited. She had members joining her in a banquet. Well, you can interpret that a member means or includes an official, but that's the term in the rules of procedure. A member means a member to me. People know how unreasonable this is, but it doesn't matter as long as you are supported by the loyalists. I would like the public to know this. We have this problem because you, as president, I won't say you are unjust or you are not following the rules of procedure. You have followed the rules. Just like the colonial era, when the governor was also the president of LegCo. And you just allow them to change the order of items as they wish. We are not going back to the colonial era, are we? We have offered different views to them. It's not that they want to amend the contents of the bill. It's because they have realized that they have missed something. They should have done something. The CE is not the president of LegCo now. So it boils down to your problem, your question. The questions are your problems.